Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Gifted X Buckets. It's your host with the most. My name is Gifted X Blade, and I cover the NBA, all things basketball on Gifted X Buckets. Today's episode will be covering Demar Derozan and the Chicago Bulls. We're going to be talking about how good Demar Derozan is playing right now, how good the Bulls are, who the best player on the Bulls is, and narratives in the NBA. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, all that stuff. Roll that intro, Gifted. So, you're here. You clicked on the video. As you can see from the thumbnail, DeMar DeRozan is in the same graphic as Michael Jordan. Is that kind of clickbaity? You can say so. You could. Or we can actually have a conversation about DeMar DeRozan and the Bulls. First things first, I want to say my piece about the Chicago Bulls before we get into anything. Shout out to the Chicago Bulls. They're playing great basketball. A lot of people had them as a team that would not be in the playoffs, would not be good. For me personally, I had the Bulls making the playoffs, but I had them as a lower seed based on injuries. I thought that someone big would get injured because typically with the Bulls, unfortunately, someone has always gotten hurt. Patrick Williams unfortunately went down, but the Bulls have been winning games without him despite all that, so shout out the Bulls. But now let's get into why you clicked on this video. So, I'm talking about DeMar DeRozan in this video. There's going to be some clips I show you from the Lakers game where DeMar DeRozan absolutely put on a Michael Jordan-esque performance. Ironically, the last person to average 38 points against the Lakers is Jordan, so that's kind of ironic. But I'm here to talk about DeMar DeRozan and how good of a basketball player he is and how he's contributing to the Chicago Bulls' success this season. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything, okay? DeMar DeRozan is a player that, from my perspective, I have appreciated his game, but a lot of times he has not been that type of guy to me. He, early in his career for the Raptors, took a lot of hero ball type of shots, wasn't that effective as a player in the playoffs, but he was always a guy who you had to respect his mid-range and his free throw ability. This season, though, DeMar DeRozan is a clear better player. I think he's playing the best basketball of his career ever. And I think that his time on the Spurs helped nurture and develop certain aspects of his game. I don't think that he did something crazy to become this type of player. I think that his game is simply matured. And when you're a veteran like DeMar DeRozan is and you play multiple seasons in the league, you're able to acknowledge certain areas of your game. You know exactly what you're good at, what you're not good at, and you're able to specialize in it the further down the road that you go. So before I get to DeMar DeRozan's mastery of the mid-range, what I want to talk about is the mid-range. The mid-range is a shot in the NBA that has been effectively canceled out by the majority of the players because analytics have told people that the mid-range is not that efficient of a shot if you are a weak shooter. I'm going to clarify that. Analytics is not saying to not take mid-range. What it is saying, though, is unless you are very efficient at those types of shots, to cancel those shots out of your game. In 2011, a NBA team shot 30% of his shots from the mid-range. That was the league average. Now, in 2021, an NBA team is shooting 13% of their total shots from the mid-range area. That astronomical dip is because of the emergence of the three-point line and how many threes teams are taking rawly per game now, and how now that we have numbers to support analytics as far as the types of shots players are taking, the mid-range is not an effective shot for you if you are not a effective shooter. Because it's only worth 2 points, a lot of times the trade-off just isn't that great unless you are very efficient at taking it. So for a lot of players, that's died out in the league. I bring that up about the mid-range because to me that should highlight just how good and how valuable players like DeMar DeRozan are, because they're taking a shot that is relatively dead in the NBA, and they're being so effective at it that it takes their team dynamic to a whole other level. Players like Kawhi Leonard, DeMar DeRozan, Jimmy Butler at times, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, obviously. Like, these players keep the mid-range alive because they thrive at it, because they're not weak shooters. This season, and this is going to be a big stat, this season right now in the NBA, DeMar DeRozan is averaging 8 points per fourth quarter on above 50% shooting from the field. Absolute insanity. He's leading the league in fourth quarter points. Now that we understand how big the mid-range is and how rare it is, DeMar DeRozan is making 4 mid-ranges per game, and he's taking 8 a game. He is making 50% of his mid-ranges per game, and from 10 to 16 feet, he's shooting above 56% from the field. I need y'all to understand, this hasn't happened since 1997, and this is not a small sample size. This sample size is 150 attempts in the season. That's what the tracking says, and he's doing it on above 56%. Crazy. DeMar DeRozan is taking 30% of his total shots per game from 10 to 16 feet. He's making 53.7% from shots taken from 10 to 16 feet. So essentially, his bread and butter is all over that mid-range, and it even extends to the beginning of the three-point line this season. DeMar DeRozan's shot making within the arc is some historical stuff. What he's doing this season is at a whole other level. I know you're asking yourself, why? Why is DeMar DeRozan having such an emergence this season compared to every other season? A lot of people subscribe to the notion that DeMar DeRozan is a player that he is what he is. He doesn't have much room for growth or emergence. He wasn't going to have such a breakout season for the Bulls. And they casted aspersions on DeMar DeRozan based on what his history was and what we've seen both in the playoffs and in the regular season for the majority of his career. What I attribute DeMar DeRozan's season to is A, his game just overall maturing, but B, his situation. In Chicago, DeMar DeRozan, I can confidently say, has the most spacing around him he's ever had. He has a big that can shoot. He has Zach LaVine, a proficient three-point shooter. He has Lonzo Ball, a guy who can knock down shots. Caruso. All in all, when you look at the Bulls roster, they have shooting around DeMar DeRozan. When you put shooting around a guy who excels at getting you 2-point field goals, they're able to be a lot more effective because the league has effectively decided that we're going to give up twos. We want to try to stop threes for the majority. The mid-range is a shot that is typically given up to people. So when you excel at something that the league effectively gives up on, you're essentially bleeding points. And then once they start to blitz and throw double teams and give that player so much attention, if that player has the ability to play, make, and create for others, they can be supremely effective at what they're doing on the basketball court. And again, this goes back to DeMar DeRozan on the Spurs. DeMar DeRozan's playmaking has jumped up significantly since his Raptor days. On the Spurs, he was able to grow into that and add that to a part of his game. So having that, on top of having a potent mid-range shot, when he does get doubled, he's able to make the right read out of that and make his teammates better. That's been a big part of the Bulls' success this season. Obviously, DeMar DeRozan is hitting some crazy shots right now, but the playmaking out of those shots and the three-point finds and points that he's generating off of that have been supremely effective for the Bulls. Now, it's time to have that conversation. Personally, I believe that DeMar DeRozan is the best player on the Bulls. Now, before you yell at me, I want to be very, very clear about something. I am not trying to drive a wedge for Chicago fans and their team, okay? Truthfully, this is a great question or debate for the Bulls to even have right now. The fact that they're so good that we're going to ask who's the best player right now, to me, is very, very fun. I think that that's a question that teams always want to have, because having more talent compared to not having enough is something a team always wants. In my estimation, DeMar DeRozan has been the best player on the Bulls because of the value of his mid-range shooting, the playmaking he's been able to create for teams, and his improvement on the defensive end. Now, granted, he is not ever going to be a phenomenal lockdown defender, but his positioning and all that has been so much better. And I'm not saying that's better than Zach LaVine's, but I'm saying when you compare both players and you talk about defensively, I don't think that there's a big enough margin to give one player the clear nod. And even if you do, it's a marginal one at that. When you talk offensively, I want to give a lot of praise to Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine is the better three-level scorer. He can shoot the three way better than DeMar, and obviously has more scoring gravity off of that. Where the difference comes in to me is playmaking and the efficiency of the mid-range shot. This season, I think that DeMar DeRozan's mid-range shot has been so efficient, and his playmaking out of that has been so effective, on top of the fact that he gets to the free throw line more than Zach LaVine and is converting 89% of his free throws per game. For the reasons I've outlined, that is why DeMar DeRozan is a better player than Zach LaVine. His mid-range efficiency, his playmaking outside of that, and his fourth quarter scoring, in my opinion, are all better than what Zach LaVine has produced this season. I think that when you take in that type of value, I personally believe that that has been the spark to why the Bulls have been so good this season alongside Zach LaVine. And I think that DeMar DeRozan is playing an integral part in that. And because the NBA is fluid, and we're talking about right now, even though I know that Zach LaVine is not playing 100% right now, that doesn't change my statement. I'm going to show you some clips from the Lakers game, and I'm going to show you exactly why DeMar DeRozan has been so effective this season. He gets to a spot right about here, turns to the post, gets to a spot, easy shot, elevates. And then on this play, this is my favorite play right here. Look at it. So it's 5 minutes left in the game. He comes down. Westbrook right here is thinking that DeMar is gonna try to slow the game down to get to his mid-range, I believe. So he's looking over for help, but DeMar isn't even doing that. His mid-range scoring gravity, like, they understand what's coming. That's why Melo is down here, because they're expecting him to go to his spot here, since he's positioned himself more so on the left side. But instead, DeMar notices him sleeping, so he goes right to the basket. So on this play, DeMar brings the ball up. He's at the top of the key. Now, this is just fundamental shot. Again, he turns his back to Westbrook to get into his post-fade action. And by the time he turns over to the other shoulder, he's already up. So this shot contest is not a real shot contest to him, because he's already going up. A Westbrook is late on a contest. Cash. 1 point game. This type of play has been something that DeMar DeRozan has been doing consistently for the Bulls the entire season. They've won a lot of close games because of him doing things like this. I want to break this down. So there's 57 seconds left on the clock. He gets LeBron on a switch. He comes up. One dribble pull up. And it's so fast that LeBron isn't expecting him to pull it so quickly, but there's no wasted effort. One dribble pull up. And even though this looks like a Bron contest, it's already up. So by the time his hand is up, the ball has already left his hands. He easily sinks that. Okay, so right now it is 6:48 in the morning. I gotta go to work. A lot of editing has been done. I got work right now. This is the day after, but I appreciate everyone that made it to the end of the video. If you're new, hit that like button, subscribe, all of that. It took me a lot of effort to make this video, but it was fun making it. I appreciate y'all for the ride. But I gotta go. Gift roll that outro. Peace.